The truck roared through the mist, tires grinding over loose gravel as the fog thickened around them. It felt like the world was shrinking, every tree, every shadow pressing closer. The mountain air was thin, biting cold even through the glass. Inside, no one spoke. The silence was heavy. Raven sat in the passenger seat, eyes fixed ahead, calculating routes in his head. Pixel kept glancing at her laptop, the blinking cursor reflecting in her tired eyes. Sable watched the tree line through the side mirror, fingers resting on the trigger of her pistol. Knox broke the silence first. "We're low on ammo. That last chase cost us." Blaze smirked faintly. "You can't put a price on survival." "Maybe not," Knox said, "but you can run out of bullets trying." Raven turned slightly. "We'll rest soon. There's an abandoned rest station up ahead according to the old map. We regroup there." Pixel looked up. "That map's 20 years old, Raven. It might not even exist anymore." He gave a quiet half-smile. "We'll find out soon enough." The truck curved along the narrow ridge, the fog lifting just enough to show the valley below. Miles of dead forest and broken rail lines, silent remnants of a forgotten world. Lightning cracked somewhere far above. The echo rolled across the cliffs like a growl from something ancient. When they reached the rest station, it was barely standing. The sign hung by one chain, letters faded and rusted. "Haven Point Stop," it said. Ironic, Pixel thought. Haven. Nothing about this place felt safe. They parked the truck behind the half-collapsed building. Blaze and Sable stepped out first, scanning the area. The smell of wet pine and rust filled the air. Knox unloaded the bags and set up inside what used to be a diner. The walls were cracked, the windows covered with moss. A few old stools still stood around a counter, frozen in time. Pixel opened her laptop again. The signal was weak, but she managed to connect to a satellite node. "I've got partial data," she said. "I can trace communication pings from Malgaria's central servers. Looks like they're rerouting all signals to the North Range." Raven leaned over her shoulder. "That's where the facility should be." Pixel nodded. "There's more. I found fragments of an old log file, encrypted, but it's dated 15 years back. It's signed by you." The room froze. Raven didn't move. His eyes stayed on the screen. "Show me." Pixel opened the file. A line of faded text appeared. "Subject 0 protocol initiated. Containment breach imminent. Termination order. Authorized by R. Vale." Sable turned slowly. "R. Vale?" Raven's voice was steady. "That was my name before I vanished." Vera, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Containment breach? Termination? What the hell were you working on?" Raven took a slow breath. "They were building something that could rewrite systems. Not just digital, but biological. A network that could link human data directly to the grid. Every heartbeat, every thought stored and analyzed. We called it Eden because it was supposed to restore balance." "Balance," Blaze repeated. "That sounds like control." Raven nodded. "It was. And when I realized what it could do, I destroyed my access and disappeared. I thought it ended there." Pixel's fingers flew across the keys. "It didn't. The log indicates the project was transferred, renamed. Operation Lazarus." Knox frowned. "Lazarus, as in resurrection." "Exactly," Pixel said. "They didn't just store data. They tried to rebuild it. Consciousness from code." Sable looked out the window, hand on her weapon. "So if that facility's still running, they're still doing it." Raven's eyes hardened. "Then we end it." The rain picked up outside, hammering against the roof. Thunder rolled again, closer this time. The air smelled of ozone. Vera paced. "We're 6 people against a ghost army backed by the government. How do you plan to end something buried in a mountain?" Raven looked at her. "By making them expose themselves. Once Pixel cracks the failsafe, we broadcast everything, every file, every image, to every channel we can reach. That's our weapon." Blaze chuckled under his breath. "Information war. Classic Raven move." Pixel looked uneasy. It's not that simple. The failsafe could trigger a purge. If I unlock the wrong layer, the whole drive could wipe itself, or worse, send a signal that tells them exactly where we are. Then you'll have to be faster, Raven said. She nodded slowly, fingers trembling just a little. Hours passed as they worked. The storm raged outside, lightning flashing through the cracked windows. Pixel's screen glowed in the darkness, lines of code spilling like a river. Sable stood watch near the door while Knox reinforced the barricade. At some point, Blaze found an old radio behind the counter. He tinkered with it until static turned into faint voices. Unidentified fugitives, traveling north, last sighting near Ridgeway Pass. Raven's eyes narrowed. They're closer than I thought. Pixel didn't look up. Give me 10 more minutes. Raven turned to Sable and Knox. If they find us, we hold them long enough for her to finish. No mistakes. Sable smirked. Mistakes aren't really my thing. Knox loaded his rifle. They're coming through the storm. We'll hear them before we see them. Pixel's fingers flew faster. Almost there. Then the sound came. Faint at first, then clearer. Engines. Headlights cutting through the fog outside. Raven moved to the window. 3 black vehicles rolled into view, their lights sweeping across the trees. They found us, Vera whispered. Raven turned to Pixel. Now or never. She hit a final key. The laptop beeped softly. A line of decrypted data flashing open. Got it. The core facility coordinates confirmed, plus internal schematics. Save it, Raven said. Before she could respond, glass shattered. A flashbang burst through the window. White light, deafening crack. Sable dove to the ground, firing blindly toward the headlights. Blaze dragged Pixel down behind the counter. Knox fired through the doorway, hitting one of the attackers. The storm outside roared like the earth itself was alive. Shadows moved through the mist. Men in black tactical suits, their visors glowing faint green. Raven moved like a ghost, low and silent, shooting twice, dropping 2 of them before they could react. Vera grabbed a shotgun from the wall and covered the back exit. We've got more coming through the side. Pixel! Raven shouted. Grab the drive! She snatched the hard disk and shoved it into her bag. Got it. Blaze threw a Molotov at the front, fire erupting in a wave that painted the fog orange. The attackers pulled back briefly. Now, Raven ordered. They bolted out the rear door into the forest, rain pouring down in cold sheets. Branches whipped their faces as they ran. The sound of gunfire echoed behind them, faint through the storm. Blaze led them down a steep slope, mud sliding underfoot. Knox covered their rear, firing bursts into the darkness. They reached a ravine where a stream cut through the rocks. Raven pointed ahead. Follow it. It leads north. They ran until the gunfire faded, lungs burning, soaked to the bone. When they finally stopped, they were deep in the woods. The rain softened again, falling in steady rhythm. Pixel fell to her knees, clutching the bag. We've got the data, we just lost our wheels. Raven crouched beside her. You did good. Sable looked back the way they came. They won't stop, you know. Roth will keep sending teams. Raven's jaw tightened. I'm counting on it. Vera frowned. Counting on it? If he follows us, Raven said, he'll lead us straight to the core. Blaze laughed softly, shaking his head. You really are a bastard, Raven. The sky began to lighten as dawn crept in again, pale and cold. Mist hung low between the trees. The group found a small cave by the river and took shelter inside. They built a small fire, just enough to stay warm. The flames flickered on their tired faces. Pixel set the laptop on her knees again. This drive isn't just about Eden. It's connected to something deeper, an origin file labeled Human Source Index. It's locked under triple encryption, but it references biological data banks and clones. Knox stared. Clones. Copies, Pixel said. Digital or biological, maybe both. Raven's voice was low. That was the true goal of Eden, to create replacements, perfect replicas that could be controlled. Vera shivered. So, We're not just fighting for data. We're fighting for identity itself. Sable tossed another log into the fire. Then we burn the whole thing down. Raven looked into the flames. No, we expose it. If they're building replicas, someone out there deserves to know the truth. Pixel's screen pinged. Wait, there's motion detected in the data stream. Someone's inside the network already. They're watching us. The air in the cave grew colder. Blaze stood slowly. You mean they're seeing what you see? Pixel nodded. No, they're inside my system. The encryption is being mirrored. Her screen flashed again. Lines of text appeared. A live message, typed in real time. You shouldn't have come back, Vale. Raven froze. The name he had buried years ago now stared back at him from the glow of the laptop. Sable raised her gun instinctively, though there was no one there to shoot. Pixel typed a reply. Who are you? The response came instantly. The one who finished what you started. Then the feed cut to black. Pixel slammed the laptop shut. They know exactly where we are. Raven stood. Then we move. Now. The fire hissed as rain began to fall again outside the cave. They packed their gear and stepped back into the storm. Lightning flashed across the peaks, illuminating the distant silhouette of an old radio tower standing alone against the mountain ridge. Pixel pointed. That's it, the relay point for the core facility. If we reach that tower, we can trace the final link. Raven nodded. Then that's our destination. The 6 of them started climbing the rocky path, their shadows stretching long under the pale light. The storm raged above them, but they didn't stop. Every step brought them closer, not just to the truth, but to the ghosts Raven had tried to bury. By the time they reached the ridge, night had fallen again. The tower loomed ahead, rusted but still humming faintly. Pixel connected a cable from her laptop to an old terminal box. Sparks flickered as she powered it up. Static filled the screen. Then a familiar voice crackled through the speaker. Hello, Raven. He froze. The voice was older, but unmistakable. Roth, you've come far, Roth said. But you're chasing a shadow. Eden isn't what you remember. It's become something beyond your control. Raven stepped closer to the terminal. Then I'll end it myself. You already tried, Roth said. And you failed. You think you're the original? You think you're real? The static deepened. Ask yourself, Raven, Roth said softly. What if you are the replica? The line went dead. Pixel ES screen glitched, the word replica flashing over and over until the laptop shut off completely. No one moved. The rain hissed around them. Raven's hand trembled slightly, his face pale in the flickering light of the tower. Vera whispered, What does he mean? Raven didn't answer. He just stared at his reflection in the wet metal, unsure if it still belonged to him. The storm roared again, swallowing the silence. The truth was no longer just about Eden. It was about Raven himself. And as the wind howled through the tower, one thought echoed in his mind. What if the real Raven Vale died 15 years ago, and the man leading this team was the copy all along? The lightning struck and the screen of the tower flickered once more, revealing a final line of text before it went dark. Welcome back to Eden.